stay then?
I don't know.
Look, isn't there her at the window? Elsie! Elsie! Oh, she didn't see us.
Shall we wait or what?
Oh, we must make her see it. Oh, it's you.
Hello out there, my name is Christina. Welcome back to this channel. This is the place where we gush about the films that we love and try understanding the ones that we don't. On today's agenda is the 2011 biographical drama film entitled My Week with Marilyn. It was directed by Simon Curtis and written by Adrian Hodges. It depicts the making of the 1957 film The Prince and the Showgirl, which stars Marilyn Monroe and Laurence Olivier. It depicts a week during its production where Monroe was escorted around London by Colin Clark, the set's third assistant director, when her husband, Arthur Miller, was visiting the United States. Marilyn Monroe needs no introduction, or maybe that's just what we've been led to believe. Still as iconic as ever, 62 years after her death, a seemingly inescapable aura of tragedy courses through the veins of every biopic that dares touch Monroe as a subject. Born on June 1st, 1926 as Norma Jean Mortensen, there's no denying that the future pop star and model turned actress had it tough from the very start. Starting from when she was about 8 and up until about the age of 16, Monroe spent time in 12 different foster home placements on the account of her mother being institutionalized, with her experiences in them sometimes being paired with abuse by her various guardians. This would be further substantiated by first-hand information provided by Monroe in a taboo manner, considering the time in which she spoke openly on this subject. By the time The Prince and the Showgirl had started filming, and as a reference to My Week with Marilyn rather haphazardly, Monroe had already been married on 3 separate occasions, one of which was to James Dutery at the age of 16 to avoid being put in an orphanage when her then foster parents, the Goddards, had decided to move out of state, and the latter two coupled with buckets of scrutiny from the American people and representatives of those working in mass media productions. For all that is certain about Marilyn Monroe, there is still mystery, and this is namely in terms of who she had ever been intimate with and to what end she entertained an endless list of suitors.
Help yourself to a drink.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was checking that you've got everything.
Let me. Are you frightened of me, Colin?
No.
Good, because I like you. I want you to help me,
Well, I'm only the third. I'm a messenger, really.
but you know everything that's going on. You can see both sides of the situation. Please tell me everything. Relax. I thought you weren't scared of me. Are you hungry? I'll have them send in a tray. I'm starved. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Am I interrupting something? Maybe you have a Mrs. Collin waiting for you at home.
There's no Mrs. Collin.
So we can talk as long as we like. Why is Sir Olivier so mean? He talks awful to me, like he's slumming.
I'll tell you what's wrong. It's agony for him because he is a great actor that wants to be a film star. And it's agony for you because you're a film star who wants to be a great actress. And this film won't help either of you.
You sure you can handle that? You don't look old enough to drink.
I'm 23, Miss Monroe.
Oh, it's Marilyn. I'm 30. I guess that makes me an old lady to you.
7 years is nothing.
You know I've been married 3 times already. How did that happen?
Or maybe you're just looking for the right man.
They always look right at the start.
This brings us to who would be the primary subject of My Week of Marilyn, if not overshadowed by Monroe. Named after a memoir that was published by Clark in the year 2000, this movie is additionally inspired by a book he published in the year 1995 called The Prince, the Showgirl, and Me, the Colin Clark Diaries. As I'll reiterate, Curtis's adaptation of all this material it's something. I would cringe to call it accurate, given how much hindsight allows Clark to paint himself in a charismatic light, while he was carrying out an assignment that most men would have dreamed of having in the 1950s. Bearing in mind the absolute ego boost that these memoirs would have provided, in combination with the timing of them being published, as it is not lost on me, or anyone with common sense, that anyone that could have refuted the information inside of them had already passed away, which makes me kind of sick to think about, Clark's proposition of some quasi-affair he had with Monroe is illogical, given his comments that he made about her upon seeing her for the first time, which were far from flattering. Allow me to read. Her figure, and especially her bust, is fantastic, but a little on the plump side. Problems? Too much fakery, peroxide hair, dead white makeup, heavy lipstick. But that is her image. She looks confused too. Lost. Troubled. That is the Marilyn Monroe image too, I know. But even when she has shut the door on the reporters, she still looks in distress. Not just acting it. This alone makes me suspicious of Clark's supposed admiration for Monroe, but that's not even my main concern. Remove all of the self-pity that My Week of Marilyn ultimately indulges, and you're still left with a narrative that pretty much ignores the extent to which the Prince and the Showgirl's main star could have anticipated being undermined by either her employers or her coworkers. If My Week of Marilyn is any indication, it is nearly impossible to put out any biographical representation of Monroe without making a mockery of her work ethic, with her behavioral issues on set often exaggerated, and thereby painting her as a spoiled and stubborn diva. And I have had enough. I am not going to let this go on a second longer. After a little less than a decade of experience working odd-end acting jobs, Monroe was established as little more than eye candy for productions that might benefit from her presence, and as such was often typecasted as a dumb blonde with a disregardable sense of agency and self-awareness. Frustrated by this apparent plateau in her career and contractual demands, these eventually came to a head when she openly refused the script for The Girl in Pink Tights in 1954, her scrawling of the word trash on its script sending a clear message to her then employer, 20th Century Fox. Consequently, she was suspended as a performer, but by no means started seeking out ways to challenge negative publicity. It is worth noting that it is during this time that she married Joe DiMaggio. In a span of almost 2 months, Monroe was awarded a Most Popular Female Star prize by Photoplay, leading 20th Century Fox to introduce a new contract with conditions that Monroe agreed to, but still required the occasional appearance in roles she did not like. Keen to further circumvent the expectations Hollywood had placed on her, Monroe established her own production company in January of 1955 by the name of Marilyn Monroe Productions. It is often incorrectly asserted that she was one of the first women in the United States to establish her own production company at the time, perhaps owing to the unprecedented amount of control this gave her as a sex symbol turned actress, in a system that left women largely disadvantaged since at least the 1930s. The Prince and the Showgirl was the second of 2 movies produced by Marilyn Monroe Productions, with the securing of Laurence Olivier in the role of Charles and its director, made easier by Monroe's admiration for him and his previous experience as a live performer in what came to be The Prince and the Showgirl source material, a play called The Sleeping Prince. What has generally gone unknown about Monroe that better serves as common knowledge is the formative nature of her health and treatment on set by those possessing some level of authority. For one, Monroe had a case of endometriosis that was so severe that any contract she signed had to allow for her absence on any days that she was on her menstrual cycle. Secondly, by contemporary standards, Monroe was a method actor, and this technique was inspired by the training she received from Lee Strasberg that started the same year the establishment of her production company was announced. These two key pieces of information were in direct conflict with Olivier's acting style and expectations as a director, with his cruel treatment towards Monroe on set very likely influenced by rumors that were circulated by parties that Monroe had worked for and defied in the past. One such incident where Olivier really did tell Monroe that she should just try to be sexy because that's all she does, makes for a rather awkward exchange in My Week with Marilyn. The replication of this exchange, curiously, removes all onus from Olivier and to a further extent anyone that wanted to hire Monroe for a given film. Monroe felt justified in retaliating through means that resemble your average protest, citing specifically a need to make Olivier respect the talent that was made available to him. It is worth noting that with time, Olivier would eventually come around in admitting that he and Marilyn made a terrible pair of director and actress, but he would privately continue calling her out of her name in the years after she passed away. Mentions of this dynamic in Clarke's memoirs are few and far between, and I won't pretend to be shocked. After The Prince and the Showgirls production ended, he continued to be employed by Olivier, which sets an ironic precedent for loyalty and points further to My Week with Marilyn being mostly self-assured swill. Ultimately, I have zero reason to believe that Clarke wooed Marilyn, much less actually cared about protecting her from Hollywood.
It's Colin. Come in.
Are you all right, Miss Monroe?
How old are you?
24. Nearly. I'm 23, but I'm nearly 24.
You know, you remind us of the young king in the movie. And so, sweet. And innocent.
I'm not sure I'm that innocent.
So what's your job on this picture?
I'm the third assistant director, so it's a gopher, really. So go for this, go for that.
But you're Larry's assistant, too.
Yes.
What were you doing in my house last night? Did he send you?
He was worried about you.
Are you spying on me?
No, of course not. Why would anyone spy on you?
Colin. Whose side are you on?
Yours, Miss Monroe.
Call me Marilyn.
What can I say? Not to sound like a petulant child, but My Week with Marilyn is stuffed to the gills with rhetoric that is more informed by Marilyn Monroe's tumultuous upbringing and relationships than it is convincing about the one she supposedly came to foster with Colin Clarke. I will only add in Clarke's defense that most of the people with the ability to do so have monetized the interactions they can claim to have had with Miss Monroe. So I can't pick too much of a fight with his relative publications. Assuming My Week with Marilyn has good intentions, it's largely acknowledgeable as a misappropriation of emotional funds, with the state of Monroe's reputation and ubiquity being largely the fault of standards that were established by her estate. After Monroe's death on August the 4th of 1962, most of her estate was left to Strasbourg, with Lee eventually passing away and his wife Anna inheriting it. Anna would go on to sell Monroe's estate, but sooner than that she hired a company for the purposes of licensing Monroe's image. This is to blame for the widespread commercialization of Monroe's likeness, given how useful she still proves to be for marketing purposes. Upset as My Week with Marilyn has made me, considering I hadn't gone out of my way to find out much about Monroe beforehand, I can't outright condemn its screenplay or its direction as anomalous offenses, much less the performance provided by Michelle Williams that does capture a plethora of recognizable Monroeisms and then some. At the end of the day, My Week with Marilyn does what it set out on doing, and it affirms the fact that stories told about Monroe should be paired with questions regarding ulterior motives. Clark's story, while trying to capture the essence of an individual that paid the ultimate price for popularity, might be better kept to himself, not left to the mercy of those whose understanding of his muse are superficial and painfully uninformed. If you are still watching, thank you so much for your time. As usual, questions, comments, and concerns are encouraged and welcome below, in addition to suggestions as to what movies I should be watching and analyzing next. My name's Christina, and I'll see you next time. Happy film hunting. Bye.